Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Nosy AF, conversations about art, activism, and social change. I am Stephanie, your host and your friend. And y'all, happy holidays. It is really, the holidays are up and at 'em out here. You know, they have taken off and we are zooming into a new year. And I sort of love it. I love seeing all the lights, all the colors. It really makes me happy. And you know who else makes me happy? Our guest today. He too is filled with lots of light and color. And that is the no other than Mr. Eric Von Haynes. And Eric is truly a kind and committed, focused guy. He operates under the imprint Flatlands Press and co-founded Love for Chicago, which is a mutual aid initiative supporting community fridges. He is a visiting senior instructor of graphic design at the UIC School of Design and currently serves as the president of the Chicago Printers Guild. I'm really happy for you all to meet Eric today because I've had a pressing question about mutual aid that I get into right off the bat. So we talk about mutual aid, we talk about Love Fridge, and then we talk about Eric's artwork, his lovely, lovely artwork. And so, listen, let's start the theme song and let's get into this conversation. I am so happy you're here.
Gotta get up, tell the whole world you a winner. Vision of a star with a mission and a cause. What you doing, how you doing, what you doing, and who you are. Flex yourself, impress yourself. Check yourself, don't wreck yourself. If you know me, then you know that I be knowing what's up. Hey, Stephanie Graham is nosy as
Eric, welcome to Nosy AF. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. So I think the one question I've been dying to ask you is, with all of your, you're so, like, generosity is like a big part of your practice, I believe. And I'm wondering, what's the difference between begging and mutual aid?
Begging.
I ask this
Begging,
because
okay.
I see on social media people will ask,
the trend
people will ask for stuff, and then they'll be like, "Hey, I need to send my daughter to camp, and I need $600 to do it." And then people be like, "Dang, didn't you just ask for like money like last time? Like, do the kids need to go to camp?" You know, like, it is a whole thing. And then I remember seeing specifically someone be like, "They don't understand mutual aid." I'm like, well, now I don't understand it.
Well, first off, as the mutual aid principles I practice start with reciprocity. So if you're asking for something, the idea that it's the term mutual is there for a reason, right? Like mutual meaning there's some give and take. So, between you and me, I'm not a big fan of this social media. It's really the kids. It's really the youth that have adopted the idea of mutual aid um in the digital realm around asking for funds for different things. And I don't think there's anything wrong with asking for help, but there's a lack of reciprocity and there's a lack of connection. And full disclosure, I feel like it's charity. What they're actually practicing at best would be charity or just fundraising. But mutual aid sounds so much better, right? When you're asking someone to give you funds than fundraising, right? But mutual aid is really about reciprocity. So like, where I come from, my family background, if mutual aid is just natural. It's a human thing. We just live in a capitalist dog eat dog, step on the next person's neck to get something world right now. So people have I think sometimes have lost the plot. But none of us would be here without the support and help of others. Like none of us.
Yeah.
And that's what mutual aid is. That's what mutual aid is. It's the practice of helping and offering resources when you can, to those that need. But it's also open. It's supposed to also be a space of reciprocity. So folks should also be offering something in return. And that doesn't mean it has to be of equal value. I'm not talking about a capitalist abstract labor, but like if I were to ask you for some funds for my daughter, I might be like, I can't, I need some help with my daughter doing A, B, or C, but I make cookies, but I do this, but I do that. It's like ain't nobody out here, the folks that are giving you the funds need they funds, right? So they could use that money too. Otherwise, you just go get a grant, go to some government space. When you're talking about community folk, you should be aware that those folks are taking from their own resources to help you. And rightfully so, you should be wanting to do what? Balance those scales in any way possible, right? Like even a thank you letter. I mean, it doesn't have to be, I'm not trying to say you're balancing the scales with, I'm going to come cut your grass because you gave me $50.
Yeah.
But I've always had a problem with the online like face with some kind of Venmo thing. Hey, I need this. Here's my little story. Now give me some money. And that's just because I'm old school and I'm like, I don't know. If I don't know you, I don't know you. How do I know that any of this is like a reality? Number one. Number two, where's the reciprocity come in at? And to each their own. If you got the funds, you can help folks, do that. But if you're actually coming out of pocket because you think it's urgent for somebody, maybe think about that. Think about what you're doing and how you're doing it, right? So, you know, I just believe in mutual aid being in some capacity there being some connection there. So someone just asking me for money is not mutual aid. It's just fundraising, in my opinion. But
Yes. So, yeah, that's really helpful to not get it twisted because I was really getting confused.
yeah, it's
Eh,
just buzz. It's a buzz. It's on trend now. Like there was a book created by Dean Spade that was released during the pandemic that helped spawn this like some kind of dogmatic or philosophy around mutual aid. I've read it several times. I've like offered it as instruction manuals to students when I work with students on community centered design. Um, I wouldn't say I disagree with Dean Spade's perspective, but they didn't invent it, and it's not. And my mutual aid principles come from my background, where I grew up. The way I grew up, if you had extra vegetables from the yard, we offered them to our neighbors. If you knew somebody might need them vegetables, for sure, we offer to them first, right? But then, for another example, taking out scarcity, right? Because it's not always about scarcity. That's something too that I think is like a misgiven. We grow tons of pollinators in my garden. My partner Risa will like overgrow, like overseed. And so this season we offered fully grown plants and trees to folks that just came and
wow.
got them. If they just came and got them, right? That's a form of mutual aid, right? Like there's
Yeah.
a rest, like, and it's not and the reciprocity is not just, hey, I got some tomatoes or I got this. Hey, you want some of that? But also we're also offering more pollinators to the environment, which in what it helps all of us. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So that's another way of thinking about how the reciprocity angle. It doesn't have to be one to one. I mean, I don't know, we might talk about this later, but the love fridge work I do, I'm not looking for someone to meet me or to balance the scales with me as an individual. I'm hoping that they pay it forward is the concept, right? Like I
Yeah.
have the time, I have the energy, I can do this. So therefore, I hope that this helps someone else pay it forward. I hope this helps someone else not only have a full belly, but understand that someone cares about them without having to know them, without them having to tell their whole story. And I don't want to go on a diatribe, but that's what I really dislike about the mutual aid digital realm is because it plays off of victimization and
Mm-hmm.
the idea that you have to tell someone all this bad stuff to get some money. Like you can just need some money. Why? Like we all need money. If you ain't got no money, you need some money. Why is it? It's like this litmus test. Well, I need some money because my foot broke. You needed money before that. That's why you need money now. But now you're talking about you need money. So it's like this. It's this twisted game of. I'm gonna stay away from some trigger words, but it just feels like the monetization of victimization in a way. And I ain't about that. I don't really. I think it's sad that anyone will feel like they have to go online and tell their life story to get a couple of dollars. Like dead at like that alone is just like off. So
it gives me, and I don't know, like it gives me like secondhand embarrassment, but I will help if I can, but I feel like I've seen folks do it like over and over again, and they always are doing it in the sense of like in the game of mutual aid. And I remember specifically I was at a photographer's event, and there was a person there who was talking about how they needed money for a specific lens, and how they were gonna okay. They were gonna put something out, to try to like if like mutually like, hey, if I have this lens, I'll be able to do this. And my friend Danielle was with me, and she's a pretty successful wedding photographer, and she's like, oh, I can show you with your lens like how you can do portraits, like if you want, like I'll be happy to, like you don't have to do that, and you could do it right away. And like, she had like this cool little like prism out, and the person's like, okay, yeah, but then they still like posted they still like went and posted about their need with their story and the need for this lens. And I was just like, now this is like a huge wedding photographer that's down to help you and educate you.
That's mutual aid. And that is mutual aid. Skill sharing. That is part of mutual aid. It's not just resources. That's what I'm saying. Mutual aid is just a principle, a practice. It's just a practice of reciprocity and like being accountable for the fact that you're not alone in the universe. It's not so yeah, you can ask for a camera lens, but that's fundraising to me. See, I just think it sounds better to say nowadays, this term is popular. I'm in the spirit of mutual aid, give me some money. Like, I mean, we could all do that, but to me, it obfuscates what mutual aid is really about. And the books are open. Like anyone that's listening to this show, you can find Dean Spade's book on mutual aid. You can find mutual aid practitioner like information online. It's pretty easy to find. And when you read this stuff, I think most people be like, it's common sense. It's really common sense. It really is. So I think all of that is just like word salad. It's just like, this is, it sounds better than saying I'm fundraising so I can have better equipment so I can make more money. Right.
Yeah.
So which
that
is
sounds
all
good to
valued,
me. That sounds good to me.
Because you don't value, because it's just like value statements, right? It's like, if I ask for this, in this particular way, it's valued different than this. And I just think it has to do with being like, because in this Western society we live in, there's this like have and have nots. And then there's this like winner and loser thing. So I feel like a lot of people are disingenuous with how much they actually want to be part of community. Because that's what mutual aid is too, right? Like, so they should be asking their community or the community that they're part of, and they should also be offering something. Like there should be some alignment there, and then those requests are more easily fulfilled on both ends, right? So like if you're just random, which is why I don't like the digital realm asking for funds just randomly online. I don't want to get too dark, but I believe there's a grift there. Honestly, I believe there's a grift there as well, because there's like certain things that people do, and I usually like the ones I usually see. They're almost predominantly women or femme seeking folk, which goes into our misandry aspects of our culture, right? Men, get up, go get a job. Like, like it's just, and it's usually And then there's like these other tropes around surgeries and things like that that I see regularly. And I think those things are important in communities to help each other. But I think it's become so widespread that I would not be surprised there's a grift there. So I think also if it's mutual aid, there should be receipts. All the mutual aid work I do, there's receipts for every dime, every penny is accountable. So if it's mutual aid, it should be transparent. And that alleviates the aspect of grift, right? So if you're giving
Yeah.
somebody some bread, at some point there should be the reciprocity should at minimum be showing you, hi, I achieved that goal.
Yeah.
You know, if it's food
Yeah.
and stuff, I mean, to each their own. I don't need nobody giving me receipts for every dollar they spend on on some bread. But
Yeah.
if we're talking, I think it's context specific. But
For sure.
those
For
kind of
sure.
things will really let you know. Those are really good signs that folks are trying to be in community when it's not one way. That's a good way of showing
Yeah.
reciprocity, right? Even if it's just open communication. I'm not asking to split a vein, but like
Mhm.
if you got people giving you a ton of money, they want to know that they worked out too, right? At minimum.
Yeah, that's real. That's real. Yeah, that's
So,
real.
so that's a good way of like approaching it. And like anyone out there trying to do mutual aid, be sure that you're just as eager once you achieved your goal of communicating that and
Yeah.
being like, it's a good sign that you're actually trying to be in community, right?
Yeah.
I'll leave.
That's good.
Yeah.
No, that's very helpful. Thank you for breaking all that down. I see clearly now. um, so you did mention Love Fridge Chicago, which is an organization that you helped co-found.
Mhm.
Um, which is really cool. It's community fridges. So to anyone who doesn't know, and let me know if I'm explaining it wrong, but basically it's fridges that folks stock with food for folks that need food. It's like you give food, you take food, you give food, you take food. And so Love Fridge is pretty cool because they also have resources from other organizations to stock food. But then it's also a place where I know I've brought food to fridges, like after I finished a commercial, like things left over. Basically, it's like perfectly good food that can go there. And
Yeah.
these are particularly all over Chicago, but you can find like the whole community fridge space all over the country, right?
Yes, there's a national movement around community fridges. The Chicago Love Fridge program. We have particular things that we really focused on, and we practice mutual aid. I wouldn't say all community fridges or like networks are mutual aid practitioners, and that's
Got
not
it.
to say that they're not resource providers, but we really do. I spend a lot of time working within the community in these spaces. The fridges are conduits or amplification of work being done. There's a lot of work that's done out like invisible, and they should remain invisible, but for a lot of reasons. Um, like our community agreement, we do not record we don't record people, we don't document those in need. And a big part of the reason why I invested in this to begin with is because of the anonymity that it offers those that need resources. No one needs to know what you need. It ain't nobody's business. It ain't nobody's business what you giving either. This isn't a influencer thing. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like, so it doesn't matter how much I do. It doesn't matter how long I've been doing it. Everyone is equal. I practice horizontality, which is part of the Love Fridge principles as well. That means everyone is equal. Do I have a lot of responsibilities right now? Yeah, but everyone is equal. There is no hierarchy. And so, yes, I am a co-founder. We call ourselves spokes. There is no leader. There is no beginning. There is no middle, and there's no end. And that's why I'm invested in this. But yes, there's fridges all across Chicago. This is our 4th year anniversary this year.
Happy
And
anniversary.
and it's become a kind of a staple here in Chicago as far as like a place to offer resources. We're also part of a group that we were one of the founding members. Like it's when I say these things, when I say we're members, we're equal. my main focus as a spoke, like on a wheel, is I'm a spoke for the Love Fridge, but I'm also a member of the Chicago Foodland Sovereignty Coalition, which is 30 plus mutual aid groups across Chicago. We work for grants, and we work with DCFFD, which is the Chicago Greater Food Depository. We work with Black farmers, BIPOC farmers, urban growing collectives, and all across Chicagoland to get excess resources and to get those into spaces. So we specifically work to get resources into community fridges located across Chicago. The Chicago Foodland Coalition members are vast, and a lot of folks do direct aid. Some folks just do food rescue. Some folks are like Food Not Bombs is like Rogers Park Food Not Bombs is a member. McKinley Park. There's like 30 plus. And what this offered us, we keep inviting more mutual aid groups in, because the idea is we're all in solidarity. As long as we're in solidarity, we're working toward the same goal. And this allows us to not step on each other's toes, but also to try to illuminate some of the lines or pathways to getting resources and the access to resources we already have, right? So people weren't trying to like rebuild the wheel that's already there. Like just jump on the bike. We're already moving. Get on the bike, and so I'm really happy about that. The coalition. I'll keep this short, but early on we did a lot of research. I think like a year of research of different ways of creating hubs. We had all kinds of ideas. There was refrigerated trucks that would be in different areas of Chicago. At one point, we were thinking about leasing storefronts because they were all closing, of grocery stores in different areas. And we finally came upon the solution that we needed not only refrigerated space, but a hub, but spaces that were large enough that we could also break food down, do composting and all those things. So we have like 2 leases. I won't disclose everything just because we just don't. But we have 2 spaces on the north. We have 1 space on the north side and 1 in Pilsen that allows us to do long-term storage and like freezer, refrigerated storage, and dry storage for resources that we get. And like I said, the Greater Food Depository is one of our one of our partners, or in one sense, they don't give us any funds, but like excess stuff they might have. Like they won't take damaged items. So like if a pallet of water is broken, if the pallet was broken, not the water, but the pallet was broken, it's no longer mint condition. And so we get items like that. We get things that like, cause they don't want to even deal with it if it's not so we get, they got so much, right? I'm gonna keep this, but I'm gonna say they got so much that they could be like, that one's got a blemish. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Y'all want that one. And so we get surplus from them as well as other folk. And put this stuff in these hubs, and then it's like divided amongst those that are situated in those hubs and dispersed amongst the community.
Wow.
That was a mouthful. So, but yeah, it's important to know that there's a lot of, it's every day. This is happening every day, like 7 days a week, every day. There's people like that have been trained to use trucks, and we do food rescue call outs. Anyone that's listened to this call, if you're interested, you can email us at the Love Fridge Chicago, or you can reach out to Chicagoland Food Sovereignty Coalition to find out more information. There's a whole onboarding process. This isn't honeycomb or something where you can just pop in and pop out. There's an onboarding process that's really important to us. But if you're interested, there's always food rescue opportunities that are coming up all the time, because we have relationships with like grocery stores and like all across Chicago, and they'll just randomly hit us up. And so we're constant. So people are constantly like running all over the place. And then there's spots we have that are consistent. There are spots that we have consistent donations, I'll say. But then there's other spots that might be more random. Just because we're to give a context, we have our first solar fridge we built. It's going on 2.5 years now in Inglewood with It's in a garden called Libations to the Ancestors,
Mhm.
which is a family-run community garden by Taryn. I can't remember Taryn's last name, but it's a family. I can't remember their last name right now, but it's a family garden that they do mentorship on like land appreciation and stuff. But it's also part of a larger thing that Taryn runs called Getting Grown Collective, which you might be familiar with.
Okay, I think I've heard of
Um,
it.
and they're also part of that. They're connected with a lot of the greening of Inglewood and like AUA and programs like that are basically around like land ownership and like stewarding of like spaces and south on the south side and west sides of Chicago,
Yeah.
all across Chicago to be honest. But those are the kind of relationships that we like to foster or to like amplify. So the fridge we have there for is our first solar fridge, and the neighborhood it's in allows us to. We have individuals that live in a neighborhood that we've enlisted to do food rescue. So we're
Mm,
not asking folks from other neighborhoods to come into their neighborhood. Even though we
yeah.
still go there, we really want to be hyper local as possible.
Yeah.
So in a lot of these spots, people want to help, but they might not have extra bread to drive all across Chicago because that's costly, right?
Yeah, it's
So
true.
we compensate. So what we've done is these folks have been enlisted by the host or the community partner, and there's a good relationship there. Like so we will pay stipends. We will pay them for their time. So, and then we've been doing that now for a couple of years, and I really like it because it's quiet, but it allows people to be engaged and their time is compensated. And it
Yeah.
also allows us to have a voice in that community that's based on the folks that actually pay rent or own homes in that neighborhood and have a vested interest in that neighborhood, not in a photo op. So
Yeah.
that's really important. Boy, you know what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah, I know.
it's real out here though.
I like that like there's like this real move in silence like principle in just to like yeah, like it's not about posts and showing people what you're doing. It's about action. And it makes me think like I should probably, even though I've said like all this time like, oh, I need to volunteer, love for need to volunteer. I should probably do it more because like I have a dream to have a grocery store one day. Like these could be my mini little grocery stores, you know.
It's a lot of work though. It's a lot of human interaction. So our onboarding process we spend a lot of time like fermenting like SOP. We do a lot around this because it's a big deal. Like putting
Yeah.
a site down, it's a big deal. Like you really need to be aware that the getting food is not the hard part. The hard part is maintaining a site, and maintaining a site can take a lot of different things, like a
Yeah.
lot of different, um, like one of the issues. Oh, this is anecdotal. Every site is different, but there
Yeah.
was this site we had. It was up for quite a while on South Prairie, which is downtown. Um, this food photographer, this really great guy named Dan Goldberg, wanted to have a site because he does food photography
Hmm.
and he often has surplus food.
Yeah.
And so he was handing it out to houseless folk, which can be an issue too when you just bring a resource to an area. There's things around that. You might think you're doing good, but you might actually be doing more harm by just like taking a bunch of resources somewhere and then being like, here. Like it can actually create more issues. So we like Dan had surplus food, so we built a site there. He actually did most of it. Because he has a studio there. But the first week or so, he was hitting me up and he's like, nobody's coming. You got this, it's packed to the gills, and I don't see anybody yet. I'm like, well, we just put it on the map. We just did an Instagram post. It just went in our newsletter. Give it a couple of days, 2 weeks tops. Like 2 weeks tops, and you will never have that problem again.
Yeah.
Trust me. Within like 4 days, he was like, "Oh yeah, you weren't lying. Like once a site is there and people know it's there and there's resources offered, those resources will move.
Yeah.
No matter, and this is a pretty affluent area of Chicago that the studio was in, but it also had folks that were in what do you call it? In housing. There's a term, but I can't. It just escapes me right now. So you had like this
Shelter?
not shelters, just like I guess it's like rent control. There's a term for it. I just
Section
can't
8.
remember. Probably, yeah, or something.
Subsidized.
Or it's just like yeah, it's just obvious that they're there in a housing complex, and then they're surrounded. Like you got folks that are like you got folks that own $1 million homes and houses, and then you got folks that evidently don't. You know, in the same area, which eventually caused an issue. The site was up for quite a while, and I don't like to talk about issues, but I think this is important just to mention that the host really wanted to keep the site, but some of his neighbors, it just wasn't conducive to what we like to do, which is the community has to be supportive of a site. We don't just, it's not a vending machine. So if there's not that, if that energy is not there, we don't want to support a site that's putting people at risk of like that kind of energy, or much less this program, the larger program. We barely get any press unless they want to talk about Thanksgiving or some corny something like that. You can read a million articles. They never get past C. It always goes A, B, C, and then they stop. Maybe a couple of times D and E. I've had a few folks reach out because fridges spend less energy than a cell phone in a day. There's actually like the waste, like the amount of environmental waste. We're actually helping with environmental waste in multiple factors by offering food to folks that would go into a landfill. We're helping, but also recycling or upcycling of fridges, upcycling of things. So some folks, they're enamored by that. As a designer, I like all of these things. This is why my opus has always been around a totally autonomous vehicle for this, being a solar, something that we're not taxing the neighbors, because we'll pay for electricity, but the idea that we could build something that doesn't ask resources from anyone at all, I think is optimal. It's optimal for so many reasons. So we keep working on designs and furthering our case studies on solar fridges and the different models and how much power they need. And it's interesting though, because you run into some, like I said, this is all human based stuff. So you start running into issues that you had no idea you would have to run into when you offer a free power supply. Like, you know, it all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay. Didn't think about that one. All right. And that's for, I digress. But long story short, the Love Fridge is a community-based program around just getting resources to folks. It's a passion project. It's, I mean, you know, but it's very nuanced. So
you mentioned horizontality. Is that right? Did I say
horizontality?
It right?
Yeah.
Horizontality.
It's the equal plane. It's just like you can look it up, but this is the practice of removing hierarchy. And it's actually a practice too. It's not, none of this is dogmatic. It's not, you do this thing and then this happens. It's not just add water. I'll just give you an anecdotal example of horizontality. It's why I call myself a spoke. I don't often use the term co-founder unless I'm speaking to folks that aren't necessarily familiar with the way we operate. But the context is, even though I might have been around since the beginning, you're just as valued as I am. Your opinion is just as valued. What you offer is just as valued. And so in order to to have that kind of space, we have to openly agree, which we have a community agreement, which is available to anyone if they're interested. And we ask people to sign on to that if they work with us. And there's some major red flags. If you can't meet these, we just won't rock with you. Number one, no personal leveraging. So these aren't influence magnets. These aren't spots for you to go take photos out in front of with your homies because you offered some food to somebody. Um, it sounds crazy to have to say that, but it's 2024.
Oh yeah, I went
Um,
out with a guy that had a not for profit. They had a turkey drive and he wanted to take pictures of the people picking up turkeys. And I'm just like, that's so rude and not necessary. Like, let
we
them
call
take
that
their
othering. Yeah,
turkeys.
it's straight othering.
Yeah,
Yeah,
take their food and
yeah.
just go about the business. Like, who cares?
You gonna pay them for the photos? Like pay them for the
Right.
if you using it because you're literally using it to boost your own relevancy. So
Yeah.
give them some bread, bro. If you go
Yeah.
pay them for being extras in your movie.
Models.
Yeah,
Right.
because that's what you're doing. You using they came to get something to eat, and you netting them. You putting them in the net so you could put them on the net. Like you
Yeah.
literally are like, you gave
Yeah.
food
And
once. You gave food once. How many times is that thing gonna be used? Right? Is
for
that
real.
equivalent? Is that even? I'll give you a bag of food, and then I'm online forever.
Yeah.
That's
And
it.
it's also
Nah,
like, it probably took this person a lot of courage to say, you know what? Actually, let me go and get these things. You know, because you got to be in line, like out on the street.
Mhm.
People have like like that's like a big, like,
That's enough already.
yeah,
You're already
it's,
asking enough of them already. Yeah.
yeah. So it's like, there's no need to, yeah, there's no need to do that.
Nah, it's that's just why the bigger, I guess, if we're gonna, I don't know how much longer we're gonna talk about mutual aid, but I want to make sure I get this in. We believe there's a difference between mutual aid and charity.
Yeah.
Charity dictates you're dictating what people need and what they're gonna get.
Yeah.
Mutual aid, the way we practice it, we get whatever we can get a hold of. If we find out people need things, we go get those things. So we offer fresh food, fresh vegetables, grains, meals. I do programs where we offer fresh made meals because there's people that need something to eat right then. They don't have a place to make food. We also offer hygiene, laundry stuff,
Mm.
and even pet food. There's like groups we work with where we can offer pet food because people will sacrifice their own meals to get food for their animals, or vice versa, right? Or vice versa. If they don't have a
Yeah.
lot of money, then hey, you gotta eat scraps or something, my guy. Like, so there's even been times we've offered Norcan. That program isn't going on right now. We haven't really hasn't been really urgent, but for a while we're offering Norcan at sites and also feminine hygiene
What's
products.
Narcan? What's Narcan?
It's the stuff for when people have fentanyl, when they OD on fentanyl.
Oh,
Narcan is the
okay.
stuff they can spray. They can like spray on.
Oh,
I think they
wow.
inhale it, and it'll get them out of that
Oh,
coma. Like it'll keep them from
wow.
dying.
Wow.
It'll literally keep them from dying.
Wow.
So, yeah. So like, yeah, and also we like groups will offer even information. There's sites where people will leave clothes and stuff. We really don't want them doing that. We really don't, because you shouldn't leave clothes outside. These
Yeah.
vehicles are not designed around. And I don't know about you, but I don't want no damp clothes. Right? I don't
No.
want clothes so we're really try to shy away, but sometimes people just leave things like that. But also, a lot of them have lending libraries,
Oh,
like the
okay.
people, so they'll have books too that people can
Yeah.
share. And then there's sites like that'll have uh DV or domestic violence outreach spaces, like information for folks too that we don't mind. We don't let people put propaganda on our sites per se, but if it's something we believe is a resource that folks need or want,
Mm-hmm.
we'll allow that. But we don't really have a lot of flyering, thankfully,
Yeah.
because that just creates they're not really that's not really ideal for flyering. But
Yeah.
sometimes people do. We've had a few. I will leave them unnamed, but I'm gonna clown them a little bit. We had this group that offered food maybe for like a week, maybe a couple weeks, and they started leaving yoga. Like this was done, like flyers on stuff about where their yoga space and how
Mm.
they're the ones that had offered the food. We had to
Oh,
be like,
okay.
come on, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Like,
not
like,
about you.
like, like it's, like do your little Instagram or whatever, but you're like literally leaving stuff that becomes trash. Like,
Yeah,
if everybody put a flyer that put food out, like, you know what I'm
yeah.
saying? Like the out, like this is a community space. Treat it like a community space. So,
Right, right. And like
so there's a, yeah,
sustainability and like keeping it nice.
yeah, yeah. But but like I said, all that we appreciate there's appreciation for anyone that can offer support. So I don't want this to sound like just but just make sure that you're thinking about like how you leave a site and what and
Yeah,
like is kind of important,
yeah. So I want to ask you about your artwork, but before going to that, I wondered if you had any other like values of your practice. So it was the horizontality,
Yeah.
reciprocity, it seems. Like, do you have
Yeah.
like a bank of like you were going through?
I mean, like, mutual aid is not charity. So that's the main one. Like, and I think like we don't, and the charity is defined as you offering things to people because you deem those are important to them. And
Yeah,
also, it also centers you because you're centering yourself, right?
yeah.
You're saying, I know what people need. I'm also provide what people need. And so we don't work in that way. It's really important. And we're not an NFP. We're not a non-for-profit, which
Mhm.
means there is no board of directors. We don't take a dime. There is no salary positions. All the funds we gather are going toward the mission, and they're all transparent. We have our annual report is open every day. Like it's a running tab of what we spend and what we have. So
Wow.
those things are transparent. NFPs, have different rates of how much they actually spend on the mission.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the National Cancer Association spends less than 1% on actual cancer research.
Wow. What the
Most
heck?
groups, I think we spend maybe close to, I think we're around like 95 to 98% of our funds go toward the project. The
Y'all
rest
use
go to,
QuickBooks? How do you track it
um,
with QuickBooks? Or?
no, we have physical sponsors that do our accounting for us. So
Oh, okay, nice.
we have people that will police us. If you get my, in one
Yeah,
context, we're not, because, we could just, that is important too, to have some kind of accountability. So because we're not an NFP, we have to use a physical sponsor, which means an NFP that is in alignment with our program. And basically they house our money for us, which allows us to not become an NFP. So, and the benefits of that is that because we're not an NFP, it means we can have board meetings or meetings and come to consensus and make a move immediately.
yeah, that's nice. That's nice.
Imme- Immediately.
That's really
So
nice.
like if something happens in the beginning of the week, by the end of the week, it could be solved. Where if you've done any NFP work, and
Yeah,
I work in NFP structures too. I'm currently the president of the Chicago Printers Guild. I'm not saying NFPs aren't useful. They're just, in my opinion, things dealing with the urgency of human care, community care,
yeah.
through that lens of NFP structures, I feel is flawed. And that's why we early on, we started doing the Love for Rich program. I actually put my foot down and said, if we were going to be an NFP, I would just be supportive, but I didn't want to
Mm,
be a core member because
yeah.
I think NFPs run into a lot of issues, especially around the kind of work we were doing. Um, but so yeah, our accounting, we have accountants that are connected to our physical sponsor.
Nice.
I mean, I guess there's two, we always have for each thing role, there's two people in our group.
Hmm.
No one person should ever be operating off of horizontality at minimum. There's always
Yeah.
two. Um, and so, I do a lot of the fiduciary stuff. And so I'm actually really well versed on that. I do grants and all that too. But what this allows us to do is we do everything like an NFP, except we don't have to pay a board. I don't have to pay a bunch of rich people. I'm gonna be a little facetious right now, but I have to pay a bunch of people with some accreditations from other stuff to sit on a board and make
Yeah.
decisions on things that they don't actually do themselves.
Right, right.
I don't know how
Man,
else to say it, but that's kind of what it,
listen.
that's what it'd be like to me. That's what it looked like to me. So take that with a,
I just hate with like a board meeting if we don't have quorum. And it's like, you know what? I have left my family to come to this meeting and we're not going to meet because half of us aren't here.
Mhm.
Like, I could have stayed with my parents, So yeah.
Y'all should start doing them virtually, at least.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, we do. That was like another board that I was on.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
the one
yeah.
thing I
No, it's
like
not
about
terrain.
Zoom
It's
and
not
all this.
terrain. But yeah, yeah.
Oh, I wasn't. No shade, no shade.
Oh,
But
no, no. I know you weren't. I know you weren't. But yeah.
but 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 it's less of an excuse with this virtual stuff. You get more. To me, I think you get more done with certain
Absolutely.
meetings on this because it's like
Oh,
you're
yeah.
either you're not spending as much time. Like I don't know, but yeah, it
Well,
was good. It was good for us. It was
yeah.
good for us.
And with all that you have going on, you have a whole art practice on top of that. And you're a
Hmm.
dad. So
Yeah, I'm a
like,
happy father.
yeah, that's really
Yeah.
cool, I love my dad, so I love seeing you with your kid. I think it's really sweet. Um I wanted to ask, so you just had a beautiful, beautiful exhibition close at Tiger Strikes Asteroid. And I was
Mhm.
curious, what drew you to printmaking? Especially, I love printmaking. I don't know a lot about it. Um, but the lithographs, like, I'm just curious how you came to that medium.
Let me see. I mean, I've always enjoyed print media. I used to do and I don't illustrate anymore. It's
Mm-hmm.
like I don't think of myself as an illustrator anymore. But I mean, my first love for mark making and practice would probably be around drafting and things like that. So, and I also used to be an inker for comic illustrations for comic companies and stuff like that. When I first moved to Chicago, I thought that would probably be what I would pursue. I'd be working in the comic industry as an illustrator or inker. And I did it for a little while and realized that while I could do it, it did not fulfill me.
Mm.
And so for a lot of reasons, but it did not fulfill me, and I needed more of I wanted more of a challenge, and I wanted to learn more. And so I went to the Art Institute of Chicago. I was already screen printing before I went back to school,
Okay.
but what I like is, in to keep it really simple, I enjoy making art and all kinds of different things, sculptural stuff, community spaces, all of that. But print is the democracy. I believe in the democracy of the page. Print allows you to disseminate ideas as much as you want by making a multiple. Right? I can make as many as I want. I can sell them, or I can share. I can put them out for free, and can't nobody tell me nothing. I can put my
Mm.
opinions out. That's what I love. That at its core, that's what I love about print. As a black man in America, as a black man in the 21st century, having the ability to disseminate my own ideas the way I want them, how I want them, what I want to say, with no BTUs, because these things you don't own that. We don't own that. Where people publish on these all the time now, but it's temporary. It's temporary. Whereas I can print 100,000, 10,000, 500 or something, and it can go in collections. It can go to you. It can go to me. It can be reprint. It can be reprinted, which is fascinating. It's just been things I've been part of. Now there's a book called "What Can Publishers Do Now" that
Mm-hmm.
Half Letter Press released maybe 6 years ago, maybe 5 years ago now, and it's been reprinted like in 6 different languages.
Mm.
And I get people writing me from Japan or Colombia or Parisian folk
Yeah.
that have read my words that have been translated in these pieces. That's what print is, right?
Yeah.
A momentary a moment I had that I captured in writing was put into print, and now it's out there forever, right? My opinion is out there forever. I don't need Twitter. I don't need Instagram. to get my, like, I mean, it's the original way. I mean, the Bible, I mean, I'm not religious, but like I can philosophically, let's break it down, right? Print allowed the word of God to be disseminated, right? For folks to, it wasn't control, it removed the control of religion, of Judeo-Christianity. I'll focus on that, right? It allowed different folk to interpret that word, right? I mean, originally people didn't read.
Yeah.
Nobody was reading. People read to them. So as a Black man, I'll go back to that. I think we should be all in this space because the narrative is not controlled by us. And we live in an anti-Black society that's constantly diminishing us. And how do you fight against that when it's, how do you fight against that if you don't create diverse spaces for us, right? And so for me, publication space, not only in my own work, but I also have Flatland Press, which I print books, I create books, I publish books and printed matter for other artists that I want to see out in the universe. There's this hierarchical belief that if something's not, like, books make people more important. I like books, but there's also this, so if it's not in a book, there's a whole lot of folk out here that don't take it that serious. Much like the mutual aid stuff we were talking about earlier. Like, I've been practicing that my whole life. This person makes a book on it, and then all of a sudden, it's everywhere, right? So I'm not diminishing that book. What I'm saying is creating these multiples, putting them out there in the universe, reinforces a philosophy or your way of life. I'm a believer, my paradigm is art, theory, culture. So you create it, then you figure out why, and then after time, it becomes practice. And it's kind of evident with like things like Love Fridge. It works that way. First, we made the thing, then we worked out the key. We're constantly working on how we can do better. But it's culturally changed Chicago. I can honestly say that. There's spots like, we do not videotape people, so you'll have to take my word on it. But when I go to these sites, folks know they know we're there to help. They help me unload the car. They people clean. Like, it's community supported thing. And that's why I've invested in it. If the community didn't want it, they wouldn't work. It wouldn't last. If the community didn't want these spaces, they don't get vandalized. They don't get, like, there's a lot of support. It's not just us. It's the community. This is why mutual aid to me is quite different than charity. It's quite different than these other models. People respect that we are there. We are coming as equals, and they help, and we're able to help. And it reinforces that we're all the same, man. People just need something. It's ridiculous. We're spending billions of dollars on trash.
Yeah.
And we got folks in this country that just don't even have access. We have folks in this state, in the city, that don't have access to clean drinking water, that own homes.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're in these homes, but their water is not drinkable. So for me, I don't know if I lost the plot on that, but I'll stop there. I think I got off track, but
I think no, because I think what it just comes down to, I was gonna ask next if you were an only child.
Nope. No, I have a sister.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's right.
And you actually met her, I think.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Because I wondered about, like, it just sounds like you're really good with sharing. Now I'm an only child. And so I guess I wonder, like,
I've always liked sharing.
Yeah.
When I cook, I overcook so people can come eat. That's how I grew up. Like I said, it's probably, I mean, my mom's side, who I'm probably the closest to, are all Catholic. And so there should be some underpinnings of that, which is we just share. We just it's a giving. I don't know. Like, to me, I don't make art to get paid. I've never made art. I make art because I have to. It's cathartic.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to do art as a living. I mean, even when I was at the Art Institute, during that process, I was working on my own craft, but I was also thinking about how I could get some money in my pocket. So I focused a lot on visual communications, i.e., graphic design, marketing. So I was working in marketing firms by my sophomore year at the Art Institute. I was working at Draft was my first firm I ever worked at, which is now
Mm.
Draft FCB.
Okay.
And and part of that is because I'm an anarchist. At my core, I'm an anarchist.
Mm.
And not what people might think an anarchist is. To me, I believe in the true philosophy of anarchy, which is it's not the strongest survive, it's the strongest groups survive, which is
Mm.
none of us would be here. The idea of Darwin philosophy on humanity is flawed. No one
Yeah.
human could make it on their own. It was tribes.
Yeah.
And so I still believe in that. And I think the capitalist model is based off of the it fleeces that, right? It's like someone becomes a champion of something at everyone else's demise, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't believe there should be a billionaire. No one person should it shouldn't be possible to be a billionaire. It
Yeah.
makes no sense. It
Yeah.
makes no sense. So at my core, I'm an anarchist. And that means that I believe that and that's based off of my belief in horizontality and that we should all be equals. And if we're all aiming to be equals, the capitalist model does not support that at all. It does not support that. Um, and you can tell it doesn't support that when, I'll get political. The Supreme Court votes in Citizens United, which makes money equal free speech. So that
Mm.
means if I ain't got no money, I don't have a voice, which goes back
Yeah.
to your original question on asking me why I work in print. I work in
Mm.
print for a lot of reasons, but can't nobody tell me what I can print and put out there. So I can put information out there. I can educate folk without charging them anything or charging whatever I want
Yeah.
and putting it wherever I want. So that's part of why I work in print.
Pick your colors because everything always looks so pretty.
It's just themes.
Mm.
Themes. I love color. I like color theory. It's just themes. If you're talking
Yeah.
about the show Drawn Through Restraint,
Mm.
those colors are picked specifically to play off of the harsh, kind of juxtapose the harsh materiality I was playing with. So I played with like gentle colors or
Mhm.
graded colors that had gradations. So a lot of that played off of um I don't want to say a floral pattern, but I definitely leaned into my love for orchids, which are a symbolic gesture in the show as well. There's multiple orchids in the show that also like played with the colors that were used in some of the lithography. But honestly, color for me is mood. It's often
Mm.
mood. It's like if you're playing music, if I'm playing one kind of song, I might if you're making one kind of form of music, you might lean into some keys versus some strings.
Like with this exhibit, what messages or emotions did like viewers have of it or that you hope that they took away from the work?
Man, it's really hard to find out what people really think, you know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
it's like when you did the work, right? Um, but for me, the work was like I purposely give myself restraints when I think of art. Like I'm also a designer. So like art and design are different to me, but sometimes they cross over.
Okay.
So for this, I gave myself purposeful restraints from day one. And I didn't want to work on the computer. I didn't want this to be computer assisted or digitally. Like I wanted this to be as analog, the work to be as analog and visceral and gestural as possible. So I put a lot of restraints on myself for building those images. Nothing was photographed or manipulated before it was created into full disclosure for the audience. We're talking about lithography plates that were made. There was a caution tape to create a little bit of grain uh, pressed with glass monotypes. Um, it took a year of building assets, and I think I was spending like 2 days a week, usually a Monday and a Sunday to a Monday, in two different studios with another printer named Gabe Hoare, who's a good friend and one of the only other people who's ever printed my work. I normally print all my work myself. This was a gift to have someone who would help me so I could just be an artist and not
Mm-hmm.
get caught up in all of the nuances of the technicality of printing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love Gabe. Gabe's a friend, but Gabe's also appreciates my methodology, I believe, and wanted to invest in me just being and I quote, is like, "You do so much. I just want to work with you and help you do some stuff," which was
Yeah, that's sweet.
which is, yeah. And so
Reciprocity.
I hope some of that comes out when you see the work, is that those are days and months and of time spent and with another person and their stories, and there's like the just the camaraderie that comes around spending that time and playing music with each other and talking about all the things going on, and having this like really quiet space where I'm not online, I'm not on a computer to create these images and to come up with the color palette and all of that over time and then sit with it. And that's what I want through the process, through people looking at this body of work. Honestly, any art I make, I hope that people sit with it. I don't make stickers per se. So the longer you sit with it, it should evolve. And I'm a practitioner of slow media. I believe that like I love slow media. I think with the advent of AI art and just like the hyper reality we live in, where everything's jump cut and smashed together. I don't really watch TV, but I was watching the Olympics with my daughter. Been watching the Olympics with my daughter because she's loves volleyball. And so we're watching these games, and every time out they smash these commercials in. And I haven't watched. I worked in advertising for way too long. I detest commercials. I think they're probably the most recessive thing ever. And the patterns, the way they're created. I don't like TV much at all. I grew up abroad, I didn't really grow up with a lot of TV. I like movies. I grew up with more movies. Not saying that movies are better, but the format of TV, I have a hard time with the rigid format. I cannot stand canned laughter. Since I was a kid, always been weirded out by canned laughter, which is like, this is phony. It's fake. Why? It's like, and it's jammed in there. That wasn't funny. That wasn't even funny.
Yeah.
And so, why did I bring up commercials? There's a reason I brought up commercials. Oh man.
Because you're watching TV.
Slow media. So I'm watching the way they're jamming these commercials in, and they're hyphenated. They're not even showing, like, to get as many of them they can in so they can make that ad revenue. They shove like 4 commercials into this one block. And the first one was for some like pharmaceutical. They didn't even tell you what the pharmaceutical was. They just told you what the side effects were. And I'm like, this is where we are, where you could just put a commercial up. I'm watching it with my daughter, and they're talking all kinds of wild side effects. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, they just threw out
and it's like, what's this drug again?
Like, they threw everything out from cancer to like, they just like moving it on and moving on. And it's just like that. I don't think the human brain was made for these things.
Yeah.
I don't believe we were made to ingest all of that on a regular basis without it having some impact on us. So I believe in slow media for a lot of reasons. I believe like headspace, having, giving yourself the space to interpret something the way you interpret it versus being forced or giving guardrails on how to interpret it. And I think so for me, textural, visceral qualities of things are really important, and that goes back to like books, my love for books. Like I can read a book multiple times, get different perspectives on it. I can share that book, no BTUs, like, hey, Steph, this book is great. Here, check it out. You can read it. You give it to 100 other people, right?
Yeah.
It didn't cost no Congolese kid his foot. It didn't cost, it's,
Yeah.
there's an externality to our universe. And I think we oftentimes we're complicit in it. And while I know I'm complicit in it, like just being on this object now, we're complicit into some capacity. I'm not saying I'm above it, but having like respecting and my romance for slow media is because it limits the amount of damage we do to our environment and to each other. And it also allows for personal introspection. And you can have it anywhere you want. You could look at it on the beach. You could look at it in your house, in your bedroom. It's private. And it's really an intimate thing. And it'll be here long after I'm dust. I have flat files and collections around the world of my work and work I've made with other people that'll be here long after I'm stardust to share what I thought, so.
Yeah. That's really lovely. It's like all from today, it just feels like you're a big, giant teddy bear.
Is it the beard?
No, it's just like, so like, it's all like, take your time. It's cool. It's love. I'm going to take care of you. I liked it.
Yeah. I mean, like all you got is, it's like one day at a time.
Yep.
It's all like one day at a time, and I'm always telling myself, what I don't know could fill a universe. So I try not to make any assumptions and unlearning, which is a big part of my practice too, is unlearning. I'm constantly like bombarded with concepts that like, oh, I had no idea that one of the America's best master lithographer, Robert Blackburn, was a black man.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that either.
That's something for you to go check out. Yeah, he printed everything. He printed all the Rauschenberg's work. Started at 17. He was a prodigy at 17 years old.
Wow.
Opened a print shop that still exists in New York that has the most, that's kind of started the community model in Western Hemisphere on what a community print shop should look like. So he offered folks, they didn't have to be institutional. They didn't have to have a bunch of money. They could sweep a floor and get access to the studio. They could, whatever they could do, which goes back into the concept of mutual aid, right? If you want, like, we can find a space for you. You don't have to have your daddy's money or your mama's money to get access to an institution to learn how to half-ass do something, to then go out into the world and then learn how to really do it. We can just teach you now. And I think that's something I'll give Gabe credit for too. Gabe actually got to work at one of Robert Blackburn's studios.
Wow, very cool.
I found this out during our process of getting to know each other. And I actually have was on a panel with his mentor or his teacher. His name is Scott Phillips, I believe. And Scott studied directly with Robert Blackburn and has followed his philosophy of sharing these techniques, and has gone to like South Africa and other places on the planet to teach these methods of creating like multiples. So there's a long tradition. And as you know, as a Black person in this country, oftentimes we are like pedestals or literally anchors or foundations for things that we won't even know about. So next time you're looking at some Rauschenberg, just go look up the pedigree of Robert Blackburn and it'll make you shake your head.
Wow.
He's also a very giving person. He did not care about money. He did not care about like being rich and famous. And he just wanted to help create more. He just loved the art of printmaking and sharing that technique. And so those are kind of things like I didn't know about him growing up. Like if I had known about him when I was like a kid, I probably would have been more enthused about the art of printmaking even earlier.
No, for sure. That stuff definitely matters.
You don't see us very often. You do not see us. I mean, right now we're in the modern art world. I feel like it's really popular to show a lot of Black painters, even though I'm happy that any Black artist, any artist gets
Anybody that gets shine.
Has witness for what they're doing.
Yeah.
But oftentimes feel like we're very categorized, right? And so, we'll wrap it up here because I can see us going on for another hour and what I was about to say. So
oh
I'll
my
stop.
gosh. Well,
I'll stop
I just
now.
thank you for being on the show.
I appreciate you having me.
I really love Eric's energy. I love his enthusiasm, his passion, his knowledge. As the kids say, let him cook. We let Eric cook today on Nosy AF. And when Eric and I had this conversation, it was in the warmer months. It was right near the end of his exhibition at Tiger Strikes Asteroid closing. And even though that was then, I think that his conversation, us hearing it now, is just super duper timely because during the holiday season, everyone is all cheerful. Everyone's in a giving spirit. We're donating money. We're sharing resources. And that's really just like how Eric lives. And I feel in this holiday season when everybody's feeling all cheery, maybe it's a good reminder to start being more cheery every day of our lives. Please make sure that you check the show notes of today's episode. Eric left tons and tons of information, and I'm going to link to everything that he said in the show notes. So if there's something that you're like, wait, what was that? Please check the show notes because it will be there for you. And hey, happy holidays. This has been another episode of Nosy AF. I'm your host, Stephanie Graham. What did you think about today's conversation? I would love to hear your thoughts. Head over to the Nosy AF website for all the show notes related to this episode. You can also find me on Instagram at Stephanie Graham. What would you know? Or online at missgraham.com, where you can sign up for my newsletter where I share exclusive updates about my studio practice as well as this podcast. Until next time, y'all, stay curious and take care. Bye.